Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. So, Putin appeared in public again and delivered a speech that followed a very familiar pattern. There was plenty of inflated rhetoric, vague talks about root causes, and the usual warning about how military force remains on the table, all framed as an appeal to diplomacy. At the center of the speech was a simple but solemn claim that Russia's goals will definitely be achieved, though he didn't really clarify what those goals were. Putin then said Russia would prefer to resolve everything through diplomacy, but added a clear condition: if the opposing country and its foreign patrons refuse to talk about the substance, Moscow, according to him, will once again turn to tanks, missiles, and what he called the liberation of historical lands.
Что здесь хочу особо отметить? Какие задачи поставить в сфере военного строительства, в том числе с учетом динамики ситуации на линии боевого соприкосновения? Первое. Цели специальной военной операции, безусловно, будут достигнуты. Мы предпочитали бы делать это и устранить первопричины конфликта с помощью дипломатии. Если же противоборствующая страна, их зарубежные покровители от разговора по существу откажутся, Россия добьется освобождения своих исторических земель военным путем.
That phrase, historical lands, is doing the heavy lifting here. It sounds specific, but it is never defined. Its meaning shift depending on what Russia wants to justify at any given moment, which is exactly why it remains so useful. Putin then returned to a claim that he has repeated many times. He said Russia did not start the war in 2022 and that the West itself unleashed it. This version obviously leaves out how the war actually began. Borders were crossed, missiles were launched, mundane details like that. The invasion, it came from one direction, but responsibility is pushed outward once again, and West is named as the cause. Putin also said that everyone believed Russia would quickly collapse and that European piglets dreamed of feeding on its ruins. This is not analysis or strategy anymore, it's just resentment presented as explanation. No one was planning to dismantle Russia. The damage being done to the country is the result of decisions made by its own leadership.
Мы ничего особенного ни от кого не требуем. Мы настаиваем просто на исполнении данных нам обещаний. Публично же было заявлено, что никакого расширения НАТО на восток не будет. Ну и что? Плевать хотели, просто одна волна расширения за другой. Мы ничего особенного не требуем. Повторяю еще раз, настаиваем на выполнении данных нам обещаний. И несмотря на это, мы всегда говорили, и сейчас хочу это сказать, мы, как и раньше, готовы вести переговоры и готовы решать все возникшие за последние годы проблемы мирным путем. Администрация Соединенных Штатов Америки демонстрирует такую готовность. Мы ведем с ними диалог. Надеюсь, то же самое произойдет и с Европой. Маловероятно, что это возможно с действующими политическими элитами. Но в любом случае это будет неизбежно по мере нашего дальнейшего укрепления. Если не с действующими политиками, то при смене политических элит в Европе.
So when Putin speaks about peace, those words need to be compared with what is happening on the front. When he speaks about historical lands, it becomes clear how flexible that concept is meant to be. The speech did not introduce anything new, it just repeated the same justifications, the same denials, and the same threats, even as reality continues to move in the exact opposite direction. Russian military command has once again followed a familiar pattern. If something exploded, then officially nothing happened. After the attack on a Russian submarine a couple of days ago in the port of Novorossiysk, a reassuring video quickly appeared. The message was simple. Everything is fine. The enemy missed. The submarine is basically intact, maybe just shaken a little bit. But as usual, there are some details that do not quite line up.
Информация, распространенная спецслужбами Украины о якобы уничтожении в бухте Новороссийской военно-морской базы Черноморского флота одной из российских подводных лодок, не соответствует действительности. Попытка противника провести диверсию при помощи подводного безэкипажного аппарата не достигла своих целей. Ни один корабль или подводная лодка Черноморского флота, дислоцированные в бухте Новороссийской военно-морской базы, а также их экипажи в результате диверсии не получили повреждений и несут службу в штатном режиме.
Now, first of all, there's no clarity about when this footage was actually recorded. Was it yesterday, today, before the explosion, or long before the war? Nobody says. The spokesperson speaks confidently, but not next to a clearly identified submarine, just somewhere near the sea. And that leaves a lot of room for interpretation. It could be another boat, could be the same one filmed earlier, it could even be a submarine from a different fleet, especially since Russia still has 2 more Kilo-class submarines like the Varshavianka. Then there's the explosion itself. It was underwater, but the video shows everything except the underwater section. You see the kiosk, you see the flag, you see the comm officer. What you do not see is the place where the strike actually hit. That part is simply skipped. The audience is expected to accept the explanation without evidence, trusting the word of a Russian military command, even when steel itself may not be holding up as well as claimed. See, the word mist has long had a special meaning in Russian military reporting. Fires become local smoke, sinking ship becomes planned submersion, and a successful strike becomes a miss, at least on paper. Now, the same logic seems to apply to submarines. If it's not visible on the surface, then officially there was no attack at all. Taken together, this looks like another episode of a long-running series called Nothing Happened. There are no dates attached to the footage, just no concrete detail. There is confidence, but no verification. The actual condition of the hull is not shown, and any underwater damage is ignored. An independent assessment is not even mentioned. Everything important is left out. The message is familiar. If you do not look underwater, then there is no problem. The issue is that with the submarines, everything that matters is underwater. So when you're showing a video saying everything is fine, but the most important part is carefully kept out of frame, that usually tells you exactly why it is missing. Russia is now openly preparing to shut down YouTube for good. The State Duma has said directly that the platform will be blocked within the next year. Content creators are being advised to voluntarily move to platforms that are fully controlled by the state, and in the Kremlin language, voluntarily means exactly what it usually does. Do it yourself, or it will be done for you. Our IP Kremlin bots down in the comment section, I guess. I'm going to miss the troll post. I actually really enjoyed reading those. Now, officially, the explanations sound familiar. Violations of the law, disrespect for the country, information warfare, yada yada. Unofficially, it's much simpler. YouTube simply refused to operate under Russian censorship rules. But inside the Kremlin, it has treated not as a business decision, but as a political challenge. When an algorithm does not remove videos on command, it is suddenly framed as a national security threat. In reality, this has very little to do with YouTube itself. It is more about controlling how people see the world. In a system being built by Putin's Russia, the state decides what you watch, who you listen to, and which conclusions are acceptable. If reality does not fit the framework, it just gets switched off, preferably without the option to rewind. Blocking YouTube is not a technical measure. It has nothing to do with protecting sovereignty or whatever Moscow claims. It's just another step towards a digital Iron Curtain. Russia continues moving towards a fully controlled information space where freedom of speech is replaced with recommended content. And choice is replaced with a short list of approved options. When YouTube finally disappears from Russia, it will not be about protecting citizens from harmful content. It will be about protecting the state from citizens who know how to use the search bar. And with that, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.